Hello, everyone. I am Jennifer Lipscomb. I am the creator of the HerSoulFit program, and I help Black menopausal women with a sweet tooth lose fat on a partly or fully plant-based diet without skipping dessert. And it's my passion because I myself am actually postmenopausal. I had a long stretch where I was going through the perimenopausal phase. That's where I was actually able to discover through my symptoms and trying to heal my symptoms the best way to manage them through fasting and through an eating window and through a plant-based diet. And this is what was beneficial for me and what I wanted to, as a mission, do to help other women do the same thing and to experience the same beneficial, the same benefits that I've achieved as well. And today, what I wanted to discuss is the different types of fasts, because this series of live coaching calls are to kick off basically a 1 to 3 day fast. And this fast is a detoxification, which will be helpful for us as menopausal women, but particularly if you have a sweet tooth and you may be experiencing a binge cycle where you're eating a lot of sugar or foods that are high in sugar or processed foods, maybe with a lot of sodium or fat. And you want to wean yourself off of that and try to clean up your diet so that you are eating foods that are more beneficial for fat loss, and you want to lose the fat. So by managing your diet and by managing your eating habits, you're able to lose the fat and promote health. So there are a number of different fasts, and how I sort of got into fasting, I first was looking for sort of detoxification methods that can help to sort of eliminate foods or eliminate different toxins in my body that may be throwing off my hormones, because I know that hormones are very sensitive, especially if you're going through menopause. You want to try and keep them as stable as possible because they can affect your sleeping cycle. They can affect your mood and anxiety and also your cravings. And so I wanted to make sure that I could have a diet that would support my hormones rather than, trigger them in a negative way. And as I was going through this, I found a person who is, I guess you can call her a proponent of fasting, Dr. Mindy Pelz, who has done a lot in, for women who are fasting or going through fasts, who are maybe going through menopause, or they may have injuries, or they may have certain diseases even that could benefit from fasting. And she works a lot with them, and she has actually a YouTube channel, and she's written books. And a lot of what she has worked on resonated with me, because I wanted to keep it simple. I wanted to start with fasting. And after reading through some of her material and looking at her YouTube channels, I discovered that there were a lot of different elements that were beneficial that I could use. What do I mean by that? She breaks down fasting, or at least has categorized fasting into 7 different groups. Now, these are fasting types that have actually been coined by people who have worked in the area of these different type of fasts. There's, for example, there are certain authors who've written books about a certain type of fasting, and they might have talking about OMAD, like one meal a day, or they may have been talking specifically about intermittent fasting and the different cycles within intermittent fasting. So there are a number of different supporters of each of the fasts, and she has now categorized them. And regardless of who worked on what and who provided evidence or studies about the different types of fasts, she discussed it in her resources. And I just want to name the seven different types of fast that she mentions and what the purpose is of each of these fasts, and then talk about what the benefits in general are of fasting. And I mentioned, I think yesterday, that I would want to talk about which fast would be best for you. And as menopausal women with a sweet tooth, we are aging and we have a lot of cravings. And I think what's really important to know is the behavior aspect of it, that depending on your lifestyle and depending on what your motivation is and your intention, having a lot of steps involved in losing fat or taking on, fasting is not necessarily beneficial for everyone. And that's why, for me, it's the most important in terms of supporting cortisol, in terms of supporting our stress, that we keep fasting and the eating window and losing fat and exercise, everything that's involved with weight management, as simple as possible. And that's why when I mention the different fasting types, as I'll go into, which Mindy Pels has sort of detailed for us, I'm not saying which one is best for you, because I think that picking a fasting cycle is an individual process that everyone is responsible for themselves. You'll have to look at what type of fast benefits you and your needs, and then decide which fast you want to begin with. Now, I have these 3 days. So it will start on December 11th. That's a Monday next week. And we will fast over a period of 3 days. And during that time, it is my wish that women who would like to participate, because I will go live for an hour each of those days to convene and sort of talk about how you're doing, how you're feeling during your fasting cycle. If you have any questions, if there's anything in particular that you would like me to address, I will be available for that time period to address your questions. But it's important for me to say that you, as an individual, will want to decide for yourself or determine which fast you want to engage in during that 3-day detox challenge. That means if you wish to do the entire 3 days, you will do that under the assumption that the 3-day fast is the most beneficial for you and your needs, based on the types of fasts that I'll go through. That you may, for example, for the 72-hour fast or the 3-day fast, want to address maybe some inflammation or some injuries that you have, physical injuries in terms of, muscular, skeletal injuries. And therefore, the 3-day fast is the most beneficial to you. Maybe you decide that you want to do a gut reset, which means, you want your microbiome to be, sort of restored. And therefore, a 24-hour fast is enough for you. There's also the dopamine fast, which would run for 48 hours. So 2 days. And that would maybe be enough for you, because perhaps the dopamine fast is something that addresses your needs. Maybe you're constantly eating. You don't take many breaks. you are finding yourself often going into the refrigerator or snacking or needing to have something in your mouth? And if so, then it could be that you are in a dopamine cycle where you're constantly looking for that dopamine hit, that will bring you pleasure. You're not satisfied from the food that you're eating, and therefore you want to reset that so that your neurotransmitters and your hormones are sort of normalized. And if that's the case, then the dopamine fast or the 20 or the 48-hour fast would be beneficial to you. So depending on what your needs are, if it's just that you want to lose weight and you therefore want to detox and reset your taste buds, get on track, and then start then with the normal eating window, which is the typical intermittent fasting process, where you just sort of have a sliding eating window where you compress the amount of time that you're eating over a period of time. Maybe you go from 12 hours to having an eating window of 11 hours and then 10 hours and so forth, until you get down to where it really starts to get interesting in terms of the benefits of intermittent fasting, the eating window of 8 hours and a fasting window of 16 hours. Depending on where you fit in and what your needs are, then that might be what's best for you. So I'm going to just look at some of the interesting details that Mindy outlines in her resources. And I'm going to leave a link in my description notes with her details, because she has given so much work into fasting, and she has a book, Fast Like a Girl. I do have that book and it's fabulous. It's really, really good. I recommend that all of you read it. If you don't have time to read it, but you're going on your daily walks, then get the audiobook and then just have it, accompany you during your walk, listening to it, because she has a lot of interesting things to say that I think can help you or bring you further in your fat loss journey. And she's helped me in a number of ways. So I want to read what she discussed first in terms of what the benefits are of fasting, and then the 7 different types of fasting. So in terms of the benefits, I talked a little bit about them yesterday, but I just want to sort of read what she has listed. And she's listed a lot. I don't think I've written down all the things that she's listed. You can Google what the benefits are of fasting, but I just want to read off what she has in her resources so you can just be convinced or inspired that fasting doesn't just work for fat loss, but it works phenomenally in terms of the cellular level. At the cellular level, fasting is the most beneficial. And for us as menopausal women who are aging, we're losing muscle, which decreases our metabolism and so forth. The cellular level of which can benefit from fasting is important for us, because it really can change the game as to how we age, how we improve our health, and how we take on weight management, because it really helps us to control all of that. Okay, so the benefits, and I'm just going to name a few here. Stimulating the growth hormone. I think I talked about that yesterday, which is really important in terms of growth. When you're younger, when you hit puberty, you have a high level of growth hormone, and it's responsible for building a lot of your cells and tissues. At a certain point, at the age of 30, this growth hormone basically caps off, and you don't produce as much as you did before. That means you start to benefit less, you start to age quicker. And fasting changes that. When you're able to fast for a certain period of time, then you can actually trigger the growth hormone again. And this is what's really good for those of us who are aging, that it actually slows down the aging process, and it actually helps us with building, for example, muscle tissue. again. So it helps us to maintain and build muscle tissue through our fasting. And that's something that is not necessarily possible when we're not fasting. The other benefits, and I'll just sort of read them off so I don't spend too much time. Okay, there's autophagy. I think I mentioned that yesterday, where the cells actually eat themselves. If you have cells with dysfunction or damaged cells, then through the fasting process, the cells actually self mutilate or self eat, and they're destroyed. Then we have cell sim regeneration. We have the stabilization of blood sugar, which we know of most commonly. So this is also helpful then for those who have type 2 diabetes. It also helps with the immune system, so staging off any infection. It helps with depression and anxiety, which is actually very important or significant for the menopausal women once we go through hormonal changes. And, depression and anxiety is also linked with that. Then fasting can help us to balance that out. We also benefit in terms of detoxification through fasting. And that's my whole purpose of wanting to go through the 3-day challenge. Again, picking whatever length of time during those 3 days that you want to engage in, however long you would like to fast during that 3-day period, you will benefit based on your needs. But detoxification is one of the benefits through the fast, and will certainly be possible through the 72 hours, but already at 48 hours, you can go through the detoxification process. Also, we have weight loss, improved metabolic function, normalizing insulin and ghrelin, so the hormones that also are important for our appetite, leptin as well, and then lowering blood sugar. So those were just some of the benefits of fasting. So it's not just about losing fat, but it's also about building up our cells and improving our health, which is really important at this stage in our lives. So now I just want to read the different types of fasts that she mentioned, because it's really cool. She has about 7 different types of fasts that she has detailed here. Again, many different people have done work on these different types of fasts, how they can be beneficial. And she has then compiled them into her resource that she has. Like I said, I'm going to leave a link to this resource in my description notes, but I'm just going to read briefly so you have sort of an idea of what these fasts are. The first one is the intermittent fasting, which is the one that we know, the 16-hour fasting window and the 8-hour eating window, and it's really actually sort of a sliding cycle, right? So beginning at 12 hours, you can already start to benefit from fasting. That means 12 hours of fasting and 12 hours of eating. And the shorter your eating window becomes, then of course, the more benefits you get from the fasting. And intermittent fasting is not necessarily just the 16-8, but there are also, fasting periods of 13 hours or 14 hours or 15 hours. And beginning at that time, she says here, with intermittent fasting, what you will want to do is extend your breakfast slightly, starting 1 hour at a time. And I also mentioned this in my free mini fat loss course. When you are wanting to create an eating window, I think this is the second module that I have in my free mini course, and I'll leave a description for that course in my description notes as well, that in order to hit the most beneficial, the most optimal eating window for yourself, you'll need to sort of, go through the period of, the different cycles. So you'll have start off in the way beginning with the 12 hours of eating, 12 hours of fasting. And once you're comfortable with doing that, where you don't eat anymore, once your window closes at the end of the 12-hour period, then you're not going to eat anymore. And you just fast until your eating window opens again on the next day. Once you go through that and you're comfortable with that cycle, then you'll increase then your fasting cycle by 1 hour, and your eating window then decreases by 1 hour. That's what I mentioned in my second module in the free mini course that I have. And she, I see, has this as well. It's helpful for slowly transitioning into the intermittent fasting method, right? It's not easy for everyone, and it may not be for everyone, but because there's so many beneficial components of it, like I said, at the cellular level, but also the obvious, wanting to lose fat. If you don't care about anything else and you just want to lose fat, then it's the quickest way to do it with the most ease. And that's what I mentioned yesterday. There's not much thinking that has to go into it. And once you have your system down, it's just on repeat and it becomes a routine. It's something that you do on a daily basis, and you therefore do not have to use so much brain power for it. And that's what's so important. It becomes automated. That's why it is an easy tool to use to get you to reach your fat loss goals. Okay, so she talks then about, sort of starting 1 hour at a time until you reach your optimal cycle, as I do in my free mini fat loss course. You can Google intermittent fasting, but it's basically about the eating window. So how long you will fast versus how long you will eat. The second type of fast she mentions is the autophagy fasting. And that's where you reach a certain number of hours where your cells actually start to eat themselves. And this is great because the damaged cells that you have then are destroyed and they're eliminated. And it's sort of a detoxification process itself, isn't it? So here she says autophagy fasting entails 16 to 18 hours. That means if you're doing the intermittent fasting and you are fasting for 16 hours, you're eating within an 8-hour window period, then already at that time, you can benefit from autophagy. Obviously, the longer you fast, the more you can benefit from the autophagy. But it's just important to know that it already starts at this window as well. Here she says, okay, and that's 16 to 18 hours where the autophagy actually starts to kick in. Then there is the third fasting type, which she lists here as the dinner to dinner, and that's basically my favorite, or the one that I use most often as of late, because when I started originally, I needed also to transition into the fasting process very easily. I didn't want to have sort of like a clear cut where I'm fasting for a long period of time. At that time thinking I'm restricting myself of food. And then, I finally get to eat. And then I had the fear that I would then gorge and binge and, sort of get into that type of cycle where I have the opposite effect happen, where I don't lose the fat, but I end up putting on the fat because my idea of restriction in the beginning was so strong. But it's actually not the case. Once you start in the fasting process, then you will realize that it's so beneficial. You'll feel automatically, physically, the benefits of fasting because you'll feel much lighter. You will actually start to have much more energy. You won't be craving as much as you normally do when you are eating more often. You know that feeling? When, especially now during the holidays, because that's, something that I'm very familiar with. I was just telling somebody the other day, and I have this in my podcast as well, starting already from Halloween, when I go and get candy for the neighborhood kids, and the bowl is still full after Halloween, or the night has ended, and you start eating the snacks that are left over from the Halloween, and then there's food. Thanksgiving starts, and you have food left over from Thanksgiving, and you have the pie, and you have the stuffing, and all of this food, which is very high in carbs, and you get into this cycle of just eating a lot of carbs, a lot of sugar, and it's so hard to break the cycle. Do you know this? Can you relate to that? You just keep eating, you can't stop. And this is so difficult to come out of once you begin. So it's so important to make a cut, to begin the detoxification process, to have a clean slate, so that you can renew your taste buds and you can start to appreciate food that's like real food, that's doesn't have as much, that doesn't have sugar in it, that's not high in sodium and high in chemicals from, for instance, processed food. So given that, going back to the dinner to dinner fast, which is number 3 from Mindy Pelz's resource, this is one that I am very familiar with now as of late. Like I said before, I was doing the intermittent fasting when I transitioned, so like a 16-8. Sometimes I would do like a 19-hour fast, or even a 20-hour fast, and then just have 4 hours of a window. And that basically, once you get to that level of like a 20-hour fast and a 4-hour eating window, that's basically OMAD, 1 meal a day. And when you're at that period, then there are a lot of things that you start to focus in on. And there are a lot of things that you actually start to eliminate. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but I'm just going to mention it because some of you might be, hey, I thought you did normally the 16-hour fast. And when did you start doing the OMAD? And how on the OMAD diet do you get all the protein in that you need? Because with the having to increase the amount of protein that you need in order to build and maintain muscle, you have to eat a lot of protein, right? And so how do you fit that into a 4-hour window? Well, when you do OMAD, then there's certain things as a plant-based woman, if you're eating primarily plants and veggies, then you have to sort of juggle and get strategic with how you get in the maximum amount of protein, but at the same time reducing your eating window so that your fasting window is maximized, and you benefit from not only the fat loss, but all of the cellular benefits as well. Okay, so the dinner to dinner is basically the OMAD, so the 1 meal a day. That means you eat at dinner time and you fast. You don't eat anything again until dinner on the next day. So the 4th type of fast is the dry fasting. Now this, I have to be honest, never heard of it. When I'm fasting, I'm drinking water. I have to make sure I drink my 2 to 3 liters of water a day. Otherwise, I feel completely dehydrated. My bowel movements are not regular. My skin gets really, really dry. And I have already mentioned I have eczema. So I really have to make sure that I'm getting as much water as I can. Otherwise, my skin doesn't feel as supple. And I mentioned this actually as well in my free mini fat loss course. I'll leave the description in the notes, or I'll leave the link in the description notes so that you can participate or just check it out if you wish. But the importance of water is mentioned in that, and I can't see fasting without it. So I'm interested to know who benefits from the dry fast. She says here, unlike the other fast, during a dry fast, you'll also abstain from drinking any water or liquids. There are a lot of reasons why dry fasting is great. Research shows us it can decrease inflammation and increase BDNF. BDNF is fertilizer for your brain. Incorporating dry fasting into your weekly diet variation for those of you that want better brain clarity, improved memory, and better mobility, this would be the one for you. Okay, so obviously, if you decide to sort of Google these 7 different types of fasting that I'm mentioning to you, and maybe you click on the resource that I'm going to link in the description notes from Mindy Pels, and you kind of get an idea of the different types of fasts, then that might be something that you think most meets your needs. Excuse me, like I said, this doesn't really resonate with me. I do need a lot of brain clarity. Maybe I should consider this. I have had in the past, and I do have phases where my brain fog is very strong, but I don't see at this point a need to do the dry fast, because all of the benefits that I mentioned from the OMAD, or even from the intermittent fasting, the 16-8 cycle, I receive in terms of managing my weight, keeping my weight in check, and all of this other cellular benefits. I get from that, so I don't feel at this point that I'm missing out and need to consider the dry fast at this point. But it may be something that I consider later. Okay, so that was the fourth one. The fifth one is a 36 to 48 water fast. Now, this is actually sort of what we're going to be doing for the 1 to 3 days, depending on which fast you engage in. If it's 1 day, if it's 2 days, if it's 3 days, you may even decide that you're going to use that time to start simply the intermittent fasting, the cycle of the 12-12, or the 13-11, or 16-8. You might just say, okay, I'm going to start right away within 8-hour window of eating, an 8-hour eating window, and a 16-hour fast. And that's fine. That's completely up to you. No one is going to judge you for which fast you choose, because it has to resonate with you. It has to be a fast that you believe will be beneficial for you, and one that you think that you can actually uphold, right? Because it could be the idea of doing 3 days of fasting is too much, right? Uh, maybe you think, I've never fasted a day in my life. Maybe you've never gone 4 hours without eating food. You might be eating constantly. I know that there were plenty of phases in my life where I felt like I was constantly eating. Like I said, now we're in the holidays, and food is all around, and I love to bake, and I'll be, going to the store to pick up things. I made some advent calendar for my kids. They're grown, and I'm still doing the advent calendar, maybe just for me, so I can eat the chocolates. I have no idea why I have the need to make these advent calendar, other than the fact that it's tradition. I love, gifting these to my kids, and they're all, I think each year, most of the years, they were always stuffed with chocolate. I might put a Bible verse in each of the days, but for the most part, I always had a chocolate in there. And when I go and get the bags of chocolate, there's always chocolate left over. So already from then, I'm snacking on leftover chocolate. So I know how it can be to, find your way back into the sugar cycle. The most important thing is being able to find your way back out and have a system in place that will support you, so that you don't stay in the hole. You don't stay in the binging cycle, but instead you're able to find your way back out of it if you fall into it. Maybe I'm over exaggerating, but yeah, there are a good 2 or 3 months out of the year where the trap is, it's present. there is food everywhere. There's celebrations everywhere with all kinds of food high in sugar and or processed food high in sodium and chemicals. And these foods can really trigger us and get us into eating more, overeating. And the important thing, like I said, is to try and be aware of it, acknowledge it, identify what the traps are, and then to find a system or have a system already in place that you can rely on, you can fall back on, and you can use to your advantage to make sure that you can continue with managing your weight. Okay, I digress. So the last one that I said was the 36 to 48 hour water fast. During the fast that we're going to do, I will recommend that everyone is drinking water. And the 36 to 48-hour fast is really a 24-hour fast plus 12 days of the next day. So one day and then half of another is the 36-hour, and then the 48 would be the full 2 days. And so the purpose of this, she says, is really to keep insulin down and go after stored sugar. So yesterday I mentioned that when we eat food, our body stores the sugar in our muscles, in our liver, and in our fat cells. And if we've been eating lots of sugar over a number of years, then our body really stores this sugar in our liver and in our fat cells, because what we don't use in our muscles, if we're not using that glucose in our muscles right away, then it gets stored as fat. So if we've been doing this over a period of years, then we have a lot of fat or a lot of stored sugar, basically. And one very efficient way of getting to that sugar, that stored fat, is through fasting. And so starting already at 36 to 48 hours, you're able to get that stored sugar and bring that insulin down. Because that's very important about overeating and eating a lot of sugar, which is why we want this whole detoxification process is to reduce the sugar, lose the sugar as much as possible. If you still have a cookie that has sugar in it, if it's store bought and not a dessert that you make yourself where you can control the ingredients, then it is what it is. You should enjoy and delight in the foods that you love. You should not, take that away or restrict yourself from that, but you should be mindful of it, right? You can be mindful of it and you can say, I'm aware that I am eating food with sugar in it. So I need to make sure that I get back on track, or that I increase a lot of nutrient-rich foods, and decrease the amount of sugar that I'm eating, or decrease the amount of desserts that I'm having that have a lot of sugar in it. I just noticed here. I see here a comment from Tasha. Can you provide the name of the doctor you just mentioned and her YouTube channel? Yes. Dr. Mindy Pels. She is phenomenal when it comes to fasting. She really has put a lot of work into it, and her YouTube channel, I think it's Dr. Mindy Pels. Just Google it and you'll find it. You'll pull it up. And her website is drmindypels.com. And that's where the resources is, where she lists the different types of fasts and what you can benefit from each of them. Okay, so right, with the 36 to 48-hour fast. Yes, good. I'm glad you found it, Tasha. Thank you. Very good. So the 36 to 48-hour fast is good for bringing insulin down and for going after that stored sugar, which she mentions. And now moving on to number 6, we have 2 more left: the 3 to 5 day water fasting. The longer 3 to 5 day water fast does amazing things, she says, for immune and other chronic diseases or chronic conditions. So she says, I recommend these longer fasts once a month when attempting to trigger your body's own healing process. I personally do one of these quarterly, so 4 times a year. And however, she says, be aware that this type of fast is for advanced fasters. So 3 to 5 days, so more than 3 days. Okay. And here I assume, because she doesn't go into detail here, that it's simply the regular fast, which I am trying to kick off now, starting on the 11th, just 1, 2, or 3 day fast, depending on which one you want to participate in. With water only, no food, abstaining completely from any food, just drinking water or tea, but nothing with any fat in it or any sugar in it or, any protein, just depending on any medication you're taking. And again, you will want to consult with your healthcare professional. Okay, consult with your doctor. Depending on your health status, your health conditions, whether or not this is even something that is appropriate for you. It could be that fasting is not for you. And depending on, what medication you're taking, or maybe even any eating disorders you may have or may have had, fasting may trigger something. There is a myriad of things that could maybe work against you with fasting that I'm not aware of. So you will want to be in dialogue with your healthcare professional before you start with any fasting. And as a disclaimer, I'm not a medical professional, right? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse or anything like that. This is simply for educational and informational and entertainment purposes. You will need to do the research yourself, engage, be an advocate for yourself. It's simply providing you the information and also referring you to research that has been done, studies that have been done that have proven the benefits of fasting and how, you, particularly we as menopausal women, can benefit from it. Especially with all of the different things at the cellular level that we as menopausal women can benefit from, because we have a lot of hormonal changes. As we age, we're losing a percentage of muscle mass each year. Our bone density decreases. And so having fasting as a tool to help us not only with fat loss, but also with these other issues is such a great tool to have. And it is only beneficial if you can see how it can meet your needs. And in order to do that, we and you need to look into it and see. And again, consult with your healthcare professional to make sure that it is right for you, that it does fit your personal circumstances, and to know what to do in case there are any issues that come up, how you can adjust the fasting cycles to fit you better, to optimize them in a way that benefits you more, because the 1 day fast may be too much or it may be too little. The 2 day fast may be perfect, but the 3 day fast, is not a question. It's something that you would never consider. So you really have to test, experiment, and look into the benefits and the possibilities, and make a decision to know for yourself whether or not it's something that you will want to do. Okay. So the last fast type is the fast mimicking. And here Mindy says the fast mimicking diet was popularized by Walter Longo, and the longevity diet, I guess it's the longevity diet is through his work. She says here, in this study, Longo showed that limited calories and low protein also forces the body to release stem cells. And she says, I recommend fast mimicking to patients who want the benefits of a longer fast. So advanced fasters, those who have been fasting for a long period of time, but still want to be able to eat food. Fast mimicking is designed to attain fasting like effects by keeping your carb, protein, and calorie intake low and your fat intake high. Fast mimicking can also be a great fast to train your body for longer fasts. If you're curious about the fast mimicking diet, she says to check out her fast mimicking questions and answers on her website. So drmindipels.com. So she has helped tremendously, like I said, in providing information for us as menopausal women. And she has a lot of different patients that she works with on a clinical basis that she's helped. And she mentions some of their success stories. But she, I think, as all of us, needs to decide, or we need to decide based on our own personal circumstances, which fast resonates the most with us. I think she, even in her Fast Like a Girl book, may go into detail what type of fast she's into, but it's all relative because you need to know what your cycle is, your hormonal cycle, where you are in your menopause stage, what types of symptoms do you have that are presenting themselves that can benefit from the different types of fasts that I mentioned. So when you sort of go through that and you really, kind of determine which fast you would like to try, particularly for this kickoff that we're going to have on Monday of next week, from the 11th to the 13th, then really take the time to understand how the fasting process works, and commit to it. Commit to it and understand, you're all in, you want to try it as best as you can. However, if you get to a point during the fasting process where you realize you can't do it, it's just too much for you, you feel as though you're restricting your food and you don't want to have that feeling of restriction, then you need to stop. You only want to do the thrive as long the fast as long as you're thriving. You don't want to be in a situation where you are suffering, because there's no point to that, right? You only want to continue on with it if you feel like you're getting something out of it. So that's what the whole point of this kickoff is, and this 3-day challenge. Again, you deciding for yourself how long you want to fast for, whether it's the 1 day, the 2 days, or the 3 days, or even within the 1 day, just a certain period of time, whether it's 16 hours or less, maybe only 12 hours. It's really your decision. But I'm going to be here on Monday of next week, Tuesday of next week, and Wednesday of next week at 5 p.m. Berlin time, which is 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I will want to address and be here to address any of the questions that you may have. I'm going to be talking about, how I'm feeling, what benefits I'm noticing during the fast, because I will be fasting, and I will be fasting for the Monday, the Tuesday, and Wednesday. The fast that, although I normally do either the 16-8, which is what I did up until, recently. Now I'm doing mainly the OMAD fast, which is the 1 meal a day. And I do that because a number of different reasons. I find that it's easier for me to continue fasting, right? And then eat at the end of the day, and close my eating window, rather than breaking my fast earlier and then trying to close my window with a bigger eating window. because I'm more likely to continue eating or craving or wanting, to snack on something during a bit bigger window than I am when it's compressed. Because I feel in general, and I think it's for most people the case, if you're able to stop eating or fast for a period of time, you adjust to it. Your body adapts to it. Mentally, okay, I'm not going to be eating. I'm expecting not to eat. I've planned not to eat. I will not be eating. And then you just sort of fall into it, right? It becomes sort of a something that you have proclaimed, and then you automatically stick with it. And it may be difficult in the way beginning. Don't get me wrong. You may be thinking constantly about the food, like, oh man, I would love to have something to eat. I know for me, when I first started fasting, um, like I would do, a fast for more than 24 hours. I'm not talking about like intermittent fasting, but I mean, like I've done, I think at the most like 7 days of a fast. I haven't done more than that. But when I started doing fasts for more than 24 hours, I remember like after the first day, I was so hungry and I would be looking at cookbooks. I have a whole bunch of cookbooks, and I would be looking at like, okay, what am I going to eat when I'm finished with this fast? I'm so hungry. Like, okay, I'm going to have, the tastiest, most abundant, meal I can think of. And what's it going to look like? It's going to be, there's going to be some type of sauce, and it's going to be, like rich. And I was going through all kinds of changes because I was hungry, and I only had the food in my head because it was the first time I was doing it. It was something I wasn't used to. And I, was basically at my wit's end. I didn't know how I was going to get over it, but I wanted to. I committed to it and I wanted to get through it. And so I was sort of, struggling with myself. But at the end, after the end of that first day and I was going into the second day, I already started to feel like this sort of lighter feeling. I had more energy, although you're kind of weak because your body has switched metabolically. You're no longer on the sugar from the muscles that you use, and from your blood sugar, but instead your body has switched now to your fat stores once you've used up all of the glucose. And you have a different feeling. It's sort of a light feeling. You're feeling a little bit, weak, but you have some energy eventually. And I go on walks during this time, and during the 3-day fast next week when we start, and I'll go into that more tomorrow when I talk about how this is going to roll out. But just for now, you may want to exercise very lightly. You shouldn't do any heavy exercising, certainly no lifting weights, no HIIT exercises, no jogging. For yourself what you're up to doing and what you're willing to do, what you're capable of doing. But I would recommend and suggest that you really try to keep it as light and as, easy as possible, as simple as possible, as gentle as possible for your body, so that, you're not, causing any undue stress. We don't want any cortisol going up. We want to keep the cortisol down, and we really want to um, feel the benefits of the fast, which is the energy. The brain fog starts to clear a little bit, after a certain number of hours. And by the third day, depending on how far you go with the fast, you'll be really sort of, first of all, proud that you reached that stage of not eating at all. And you will be really happy about how the process is, what you're going through. Your bowels will change during that time. You'll want to wean back into eating. You don't want to jump right into it. And you also want to sort of wean into the fast. And I'll talk about that tomorrow as well. Tomorrow's Friday. We still have the weekend before we will go into the fast of next week. But I will explain a little bit how we want to go about the fast in a safer way so that, you're not sort of thrown into it and feeling uncomfortable with the whole process. There are some physiological sensations that you'll go through, and also biological with your intestines. You want to ease your intestines into the process. And so there are some recommendations from people who've written books about fasting, whether or not you want to do, I don't know the term in English, but in German, I think it's Glaubersalz. It's sort of like, I don't know if anyone who is, hi, Black flourishing and free girl, how you doing? Can I go about my usual daily routine when fasting, or do I need to rest and relax? That is an awesome question. Can I go about my usual daily routine when fasting? So I will talk about the fasting process again tomorrow, but um, the initial idea when you're fasting is really to have a schedule that is not very intense. If you would say that you have planned, uh, a day filled with a lot of different appointments or a lot of different meetings, or you have, presentations that you have to be fit for mentally, you have to really perform for the task that you have for that particular day. I would not necessarily suggest that you do the fasting for that period. Fasting is really a process that you should go through when you have less engagement, or fewer appointments, so that you're not inundating yourself with activities during that time, because you really want to relax. As you said, you need to rest, you need to really concentrate on as much mental capacity that you have, because you're performing, or your body is functioning on a lower level in the beginning, right? You don't have the brain energy from the glucose that you normally need. Your brain functions on both ketones and on glucose, right? But once you've gone through, you've depleted all of your glucose stores, then you have this initial um, energy depletion, and you're really sort of weak. And so having to engage in a lot of activities which require a lot of energy, a lot of performance concentration, I would say that that's probably not ideal, and is not recommended. Um, so really, if you consider participating in the detox challenge starting next week, I would try and carve out the time, block out the time where you're going to fast, whether it is, like I said, starting with the 12-hour fast, or maybe have a longer fast, 16/8, or even longer, maybe 20-hour fast and a 4-hour eating window on the one day, and that's it. And you say, okay, I'm finished, and then I'm going to continue on normally from that point forward. Or you say, I'm going to fast for the entire day. Are you going to do 2 days or 3 days? However long you decide you want to fast for, try to plan your activities during that time, if you have the luxury of doing that. It could be that you work in an office and you can't decide whether or not you have, a meeting at 12 o'clock, or, 5 meetings on the Monday. You're not able to cancel them or start, the meetings after your fast, or, you can't necessarily rearrange your work life based on your personal or private decision to do the fast. But if you're able to schedule your day in such a way that it really does support the fasting period, then that's ideal. So do what you need to do in order to accommodate that time period, with those thoughts in mind that I have mentioned, with having low activity, low performance, so that you're not overwhelmed, but you can really concentrate on the fast itself. Because during that time, while you're fasting, you really will be experiencing a lot of different things mentally, And physiologically, you'll be going through a lot of stuff. Like I said, when I first started fasting, I was going through all kinds of changes. And whatever you're feeling, but it is very beneficial to you, and you will really appreciate it if you're able to get through your fasting period that you decide for yourself. You'll be proud, that you were able to establish that. And depending on how long you fast, like I said, I'll get into that tomorrow when I talk about the process and the rollout. You will experience those benefits that I mentioned, depending on the number of hours that you commit to. So based on the different types of fasts and the a number of hours that are that are assigned to those different type of fasts, depending on whether it's intermittent fasting or the 36 or 48-hour fast or what have you, there are benefits that coincide with that fasting cycle or that fasting period. So the main thing is really to, like I said, determine which one is most relevant for you and to commit to it as much as you can, where you still feel as though you're thriving from it. And once you get through it, to just decide from that point forward whether or not the fasting window or the eating window or the different types of fasting methods is something that you think that you can sort of move forward with, if it's something that you think that you will want to incorporate into your life, if it's something that you think that you can see yourself doing long-term, ongoing for your weight loss journey. Because like I said, I did mention this during this week, it's really a decision that you say, it's something that I want to do. Fasting is something I want to have as a part of my life. Now, I don't mean this 3-day fast that I'm talking about that we're going to be doing, that we're going to be doing 3-day fasts every, so often. Sorry about that. That you will have to commit to fasts that last over a certain period of time, often or frequently throughout your life. I'm not saying that, because the intermittent fast or the sliding eating window that I talk about, that's really oops, sorry about that.
Hi, Jen.
Sorry about that. That's my mother calling in. Unplanned, spontaneous. I apologize. I see I've been here already for an hour. My mom's calling. I'm gonna cut this short, and I will continue on with how we're going to roll out the fasting for next week. And any questions you have, any more questions you have that you want to have addressed, please send them in the comments and I will get back to you on them. I will address them either during our the live coaching call tomorrow, or I will, if you want to send it via a DM or email, if you join my free mini fat loss course, which I will include in the description notes. However you want to reach out to me, if you have any questions, let me know. I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Happy that you joined me, and I'm so happy that you will possibly consider joining me in the fast detox challenge next week. I will be on again tomorrow, same time, and we'll discuss how we're going to roll everything out, and I'll be available again tomorrow for questions. So take care, and again, thanks so much for participating.